Good afternoon, my people. What is going on? It is your main man, Charles Tank Harris, the founder and chief visionary officer of the financial literacy platform Wealth Our Way, where our motto is wealth is not only for the wealthy. I welcome each and every one of you to episode 186, Inflation and Recession, Explained and Examined. But before we get into today's material, I want to practice the attitude of gratitude and thank each and every one of you who are here with me as we stream across the Wealth Our Way Facebook page and the Wealth Our Way Network YouTube page. The Wealth Our Way Network YouTube page is growing in subscribers. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But let's not stop right now. Let's keep this momentum going. Please, if you are listening to this and you have not subscribed to the YouTube page, please get over there and subscribe to Wealth Our Way Network. Also, please tell a friend. My team is doing amazing things with our social media platforms on Instagram and Facebook. Please share, like, and comment on our social media platforms. I want to give a salute to the members of Wild Nation who will watch this recording in its pre-recorded state overnight, over the weekend, wherever they can squeeze 15 minutes of financial literacy in, and then a heartfelt how are you to the good folks on the Life 101 platform who listen to the audio recording of this very here program. Crazy, crazy times we are living in. Got a lot to cover in a short period of time. I do want to make a correction on our broadcasting schedule. It is Tuesday, October 18th today. We will be having 15 minutes of finance on Thursday, October 20th. Our next financial power hour with the lovely Kalima White will be Wednesday, October 26th, a week from tomorrow. No financial power hour tomorrow. We will most likely do our series on financial horror stories the week of Halloween. So I want to make sure you guys all know those changes. 15 minutes of finance today. 15 minutes of finance Thursday, financial power hour next Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern. With that being said, let's jump into the subject matter at hand because it's the talk of the town. It's confusing everybody. People don't understand these terms. I really want to get to the point where you guys know it like the back of your hand. We've been talking about inflation and recession concerns for the last year and a half here at Wealth Our Way. I was well ahead of the curve with getting everyone up to speed on what these terms mean and what to expect. So let's dive into it. Let's talk about inflation first. Inflation, I think, is a little simpler to get across to people. Inflation is the rise in cost of goods and services. Simple, plain. When you see prices rising, that is inflation. Now, we're hearing a lot of talk about the Fed. The Fed is short for the Federal Reserve Bank. It is the bank of the banks. It is where every bank that you've ever heard of goes to borrow money to lend out to consumers like you and I. The Fed tries to control interest rates and they try to control the economy through interest rates. So when they feel as though the economy is overheated, when the economy is growing too fast, when prices are rising too high, the Fed will step in and they will raise interest rates. Why do they do this? Why do they think that will work? Well, when you have a dollar, and you guys know from being here at Wealth Our Way, I have a term called BUD, best use of a dollar. We make a choice with every dollar we have. We either spend it, we save it, or we invest it. Those are basically our three options. I mean, we could burn it if we want to, but we don't normally do that. And we could give it away, and some of us do that. But we normally spend it, we save it, we invest it. When prices are high, we get less for the dollars we spend. So it will incentivize us to maybe not spend these dollars. There are certain things, consumer necessity goods, food, water, clothing, that we're going to buy regardless of price. So those consumer things are called consumer staples. We need those to live. But everything else is kind of variable. Do you buy a new car right now? Do you go on a trip? Do you get extra haircuts? Do you do these things? Those things are subject to price changes. So when prices are higher, we tend to spend less. That's what inflation does to us. The government wants to further make sure the economy slows down. So they just don't let the natural work of inflation do its job. They raise interest rates. What does raising interest rates have to do with inflation? Well, now that same dollar that I was making a choice with, I can now decide to, instead of spending it because prices are high, I can save it and I can be rewarded for saving it because my savings account that used to only pay me 1/5 of 1% for resting a dollar in there is now, I just got an email from PenFed Credit Union, which is a credit union that I use, that the savings rate is up to 1.7%. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it does sound like a lot when just 18 months ago, I was getting 0.17% at another bank. My rate is 10 times higher that I can save at. That is what raising interest rates does. It gives me an incentive to save. Most people will choose to invest instead of save because investments tend to give you a better return on your money. But when the government is raising interest rates in an effort to slow down the economy, businesses are not expanding as much as they used to expand. They can't because businesses expand through either spending their own money or spending borrowed money. And now, because the Fed has risen interest rates, has raised interest rates, it costs too much money to borrow money. So they won't take out as many loans and start as many new projects. So businesses will slow. They also won't spend their own money because A, they can save it at an increased rate with the banks that they deal with. Also, where would they spend it? On things that have higher prices. So the economy starts to contract and it starts to slow. That leads us to this term recession. What is a recession? A recession is technically defined by two consecutive quarters, and a quarter is 3 months, two consecutive quarters of declining GDP. What is GDP? Gross domestic product. A fancy term for saying how much output does America do? Or how much output does your house do? Your house has a GDP. What is all of the growth that we have in the house versus all of our expenditures? So American GDP is made up of what consumers in America spend, what businesses invest, what the government spends, and the difference between what we ship out of the country in goods and what we buy coming into the country. It's our net trade balance. The net trade balance for the last, decade and a half has been negative. So it's not helped our GDP. It's actually pulled our GDP down. So our GDP has really been based on consumer spending, which makes up the vast majority. 70% of GDP in America comes from you and I spending money. Businesses choosing to invest and the government choosing to spend. Those three items, as you look at those total numbers of what gets used, that's your gross domestic product. When that goes down for two consecutive quarters, we call it a recession. This is not just a term. We should worry about this because what does this mean? This means the government is spending less. Programs that we depend on probably aren't getting funded. They're chilling in what they spend. Government spending is down. Businesses are not investing. If businesses are not investing, first of all, the other businesses that would have been invested in, they're not getting money now. They're not growing. But the other businesses that would normally be the buyers that would do the investing, they're not growing their products, their services, and their enterprises because they're being conservative and retracting. Individuals aren't spending. Now, I try to teach you guys not to spend too much anyway, but let's look at the bigger mindset of the whole entire country slowing down consumer spending. What does that mean? That means there's less goods and services being purchased from companies. Their sales are down. If their sales are down, they look to cut expenses. What is one of the biggest expenses that most companies have? I can tell you here at Wealth Our Way, it's labor. It's our staffing. So a lot of companies in a declining GDP situation, unemployment goes up. They start to lay off workers to reduce expenses, which is why we always talk about a recession and have so much fear around it. Because It paints a picture where we can't spend money, because we're not spending money, companies are laying people off, unemployment's going on, so there's less money, and it seems like a cycle that will never end. Let's be clear about how long recessions tend to last. Historically, since way back 1854, which is what, 268 years ago? For the last 268 years, recessions tend to last about 17 months, a little bit under, a year and a half. But we don't have to go back that far. Let's look at what we call the modern era, which is post-World War II. Recessions tend to last about 10 months. So we should really be looking at slightly under a year. That's all of the definitions. Inflation, why the Fed raises rates, GDP, recession. Now that you know the info, what the hell do we do about this, Big Tank? First things first, we make sure that we have a job. We make sure that we have a source of income. Now, in some industries, layoffs are inevitable and we can't control that. We should be looking for ways to make ourselves more valuable at our job so that we do not get laid off, but also keeping an eye on, when I ride my motorcycle, I was trained, no matter what I'm doing in front of me, always look for my escape. If something unexpectedly happens, I need to know where I can go immediately on my motorcycle. This is the time to look for your escape in the workforce. Make sure you know what your backup plan is in your industry or outside of your industry, should your industry contract as a part of what's going on with the recession. The second thing, if you have not been coached by Big Tank to this point to become more of a saver and an investor as opposed to a spender, here is a catalyst to make that happen. So for me, with my weight, y'all know my weight fluctuates. When I'm feeling good, I start eating again. Then I get so big where my knees hurt, my back hurt. I can't talk without catching my breath. I'm sweating. I say, oh crap, I'm out of shape again, bad. I got to go do something about it. Something forces me to do something about it. Right now, the economy is about to force all of us to look at our spending, look at our savings, look at our investing, and trim the fat, so to speak. It always comes back to the fat with Big Tank. We got to trim the fat. We got to get ourselves to a point where we are spending only in the areas we need to spend and bolstering our savings. There's never is a strong word. In the last quarter century, it has not been a better time. There has not been a better time to start looking at savings accounts and start to put money into savings accounts. When I was a advisor at Smith Barney and Payne Weber, it was almost impossible to get people to save. It wasn't impossible to get them to invest, but to save, people were like, I'm not getting any interest on my savings account. Why would I put money there? I'd rather spend it or invest it. And they were making smart decisions because the rates did not justify saving. Now, rates are going back up. Savings accounts, money market accounts, the cash value inside of your whole life or other permanent life insurance policies are going up. Now is the time to look at your savings. So that is what a recession is. That is what is inflation. We are going to do a little Q&A on Thursday because I gave you a lot of information, and we're going to talk about a couple of other areas of the economy before we go into the weekend. With that being said, down here in Georgia, beautiful, crisp fall weather. My son's final JV football game is this Thursday. It was postponed a few weeks back because of Hurricane Ian. I'm looking forward to it. They're 5-1. I'm looking forward to them wrapping up the season with a big win over Johns Creek High School. I want you guys to have a great week. Any questions you have, make sure you email them to info@wealth.our way. And please remember, wealth is not only for the wealthy. You guys have an amazing day.